Okay, we are live on Facebook, on both our Facebook pages and to our webinars. So welcome everybody. I'm here with my great pal, Dr. Bruce Lipton. And for those three of you who don't know who this guy is, I mean, he is the best-selling author of amazing, groundbreaking books like The Biology of Belief, international bestsellers, Spontaneous Evolution, and The Honeymoon Effect. He's a STEM biologist. He teaches immunology. He's an immunologist. He knows all kinds of stuff, and he essentially helped to create and to popularize the science of epigenetics. So welcome, Bruce. So great to have you with me.
Dearest Lynn, I'm excited to be with you because, as you've already said, we've been together for a number of years on and off, and we've had the opportunity to talk around the world and offer personal empowerment. And I love that because we walk away not asking people to do anything but take their power. Because we trust the people to have a much better vision of the world than our leaders have at this time. So I appreciate this opportunity to be with your community, and my community is very happy to be with you. So very
Wonderful.
excited, very excited.
Wonderful, wonderful, absolutely. And by the way, for your community, if you don't know who I am, my name is Lynn McTaggart, and I am the author of a number of international bestsellers myself, The Field, The Intention Experiment, The Bond, and my latest book, The Power of Eight. And my work is all, and I started out as an investigative reporter and basically got hijacked into the science of spirituality. And my work is all about joining those dots, and more recently, the power of intention and the power of small communities in doing group intention. So, Bruce, let's talk quantum physics. Let's talk about where this, what this has to do with health. You know, we were talking the other day when we were preparing this, and we were talking about that fantastic article, The Mental Universe. Do you
Yes.
want to tell everybody a little bit about that and why that's important?
Well, the first thing, Lynn, is thank you so much because I think just like your community, my community knows who you are, and we put it out that I'm hoping my community is all signed in because I acknowledge that this is a great opportunity for us to be together and to talk to this worldview. Um, let's start off with physics. Oh no, don't give me an equation. No, I'm not going to give you an equation. I'm going to give you a fundamental insight, and that is this. Physics, by definition, means mechanisms of the universe. Physics is to understand how the universe works. So it's a big topic. The physics that almost all of us in this world, in this community right now, have been programmed with is the physics referred to as Newtonian physics or classical physics. The significance of that physics is that it looks at the universe and says, oh, there are two realms to the universe, a physical material realm and an invisible energetic realm. So two realms. And then they come to the conclusion that whatever is physical can only be affected by physical things, and whatever is energy can only be affected by energy things. But matter and energy don't talk to each other. So I say, so why is that relevant? So I said, well, hey, humans are physical body as we perceive it. And I go, yeah. And I say, that's why we have been programmed to believe that if you want to adjust your health, then you have to use something physical, pharmaceutical drugs, for example. And so that makes us like rely on the chemical industry to help us heal our lives and help us through the world. And I go, okay, that's a duality universe. And I go, so what was different when quantum physics came in 1927? Number one fundamental thing is the universe is only one thing. It's all energy. There's no such thing as matter as we perceive it. This is an illusion. And I love it because Einstein's quote is, reality is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. And why is this so relevant? What is it? Where does it come from in the first place? And the answer is this. When you take apart an atom, and all of us have seen the conventional view of an atom, a little solar system with a nucleus and electrons running all around, and it's just smaller particles. So they said, oh, atom made out of small particles. But when scientists said, what are those small particles made out of? The world changed. because inside those protons, neutrons, and electrons, there's nothing physical. It's energy vortices. Inside of those particles, subatomic particles, are nano tornadoes of force. And a tornado is a very forceful thing. And so atoms have force to them. And I say, why is it relevant? Because if you push on a tornado, it will push back and it feels like something's there. As a matter of fact, you push on a tornado, lift up your car, your house, and throw it away. And so I say, oh, it feels like there's something physical. I go, but no, a tornado is an energy field, a vortex. And I go, atoms are like tornadoes. So when you touch something that's physical, it pushes back on you. And I go, same as miniature tornadoes. So it has a feeling to it. But the most important part is when you look inside the particles, there are no smaller particles. Inside the particles are these nano tornadoes. I say, so why is it relevant? An atom is made out of energy. And I go, so why is that relevant? Because then everything that is presumably made out of atoms is not matter. It's an expression of energy. And so the last thing to make sense out of it is, well, as I said, energy realm, invisible, can't see it. I go, well, then how can we be here seeing each other and responding to each other? And then I'm going to say this, and you think it's a joke, but it's not. The reason why you can see me is the lights are on. And I go, oh, yeah. No. Let me give you a reason why. Photons from light sources, when they hit the atoms, which are energy fields, the photons are reflected back. So the point is simply this: you're not seeing my energy, you're seeing a veneer of photons hitting the surface and then being, reflected back into your sight. Under that veneer, there's nothing physical at all. As a matter of fact, the new scan systems like CAT scans and MRI scans, PET scans that medical people are using, which is these machines developed by physicists, they don't read light, they read energy. And I go, why is that relevant? They can see through you. And when you take a scan of a body like an MRI, you can see all the muscles, the bones, and all the connections. And I go, that's not a visual image produced by light. That is an electromagnetic field. That's what the scan reads. It can go right through your body and read all the fields. So first thing and most important thing, this is an illusion. It's an energy. And I go, so why is this relevant? And the answer is, energy affects energy. So I say, yeah, there's the energy that we perceive as matter. And then around me is this invisible energy, which we call the field, which my dear, lovely friend on the other screen right here has written the most excellent book to awaken the public. Let me give you the name of the book. It's, The Field. And why is it relevant? And the answer is simply this: energy interacts with energy. We used to exclude all this invisible energy around us as not relevant in Newtonian physics. And quantum physics says, no, all energy is entangled. Every energy is entangled, like ripples on a pond. When it's raining, all the ripples are moving and they're engaging. I say, they're all connected. I say, we are connected to everything because we're an illusion of matter, but we're energy. So what? And I go, now that we got that far, let me acknowledge something that's the most important fact at this moment, and that is this: quantum physics is the most valid science on planet Earth. It has been the most tested and affirmed to be true more than any other science. So if you're going to challenge a science, the last challenge would be to quantum physics. And I go, so what? And then here it comes, folks. Primary principle of quantum physics: consciousness is creating our reality. And you go, oh, that sounds like new agey stuff, thinking your way. I go, no, it's quantum physics. And in fact, there's a wonderful article. Well, look, let's put it this way. 1927, when quantum physics was introduced, Max Planck, one of the founders of quantum physics, came up with an understanding saying the mind is the matrix of all matter. And mind is creating this. I go, well, that's from 1927. I go, well, interestingly, in the journal Nature, most prestigious scientific journal on this planet, an article by a physicist from Johns Hopkins, by Richard Kahn Henry. And I say, oh, it's called The Mental Universe. And I go, so what's so cool about it? I say, well, you could read the sciencey stuff, or you could just look at the last sentence. And this is it. And this is from the most valid science on the planet. The universe is immaterial. It's mental and spiritual. live and enjoy. I go, spiritual in Nature, the scientific journal? It's like, yes, quantum physics is talking about energy fields, which Lynn writes about beautifully. And I say, so why is that relevant? Because when we talk about energy fields, that they shape matter. And that's another quote. The field is the sole governing agency of matter. The energy shapes us. I go, so the conclusion is that consciousness is what shapes that energy. So as you change your consciousness, you change the world in which you live. And this becomes important because we always think, oh, our thoughts are just random things. Matter of fact, most of you think your thoughts are encased in your head. I got a thought inside. Nobody can see it. I go, guess what? When I put wires on your head called electroencephalograph, EEG, I could read your brain activity. That's how we read brain activity. But there's a newer device called magnetoencephalograph, MEG. I go, hey, guess what? It reads brain function, consciousness. It reads consciousness. I go, and the probe that reads this consciousness in MEG doesn't even touch the head. It's out here. And then I say, well, what's the significance? And the answer is profound. Your thoughts are not contained in your head. They're broadcast into the field. And as part of the field and the field shaping matter, and then you go back to the fundamental of quantum physics, and it says, we're creating this with our consciousness. And then, that's really cool, except that people have known about this for like 400 years. And I go, like, who? And I go, well, the Jesuits have been telling their followers for 400 years, give me a child until it's 7 and I will show you the man. I go, well, what does that mean? They've been saying it for 400 years. And it turns out the brain is like a computer. You go to the store, buy a new computer, bring it home, push start, and it boots up. And now I say, okay, now that it's booted up, make a drawing, write an essay, do a spreadsheet. You go, no, can't do it. I say, why not? When you get a new computer, the first thing you have to do is put programs in it. And then once you have programs, you can interface the programs. So the brain is a computer. It boots up in the last trimester of pregnancy, but it's not usable until programs are put in. And now we understand that for the first 7 years of a child's life, the brain of that child is not predominantly in consciousness. It's in theta, a lower vibration, which is imagination. So that's why kids under 7 mix the real world and imaginary world, pour nothing into a cup and then drink it and say, oh, that was the most delicious tea I ever had. That's theta. But theta is hypnosis. And then what do we know? Your brain computer gets programs in the first 7 years, but they get them from downloading behavior by observing your parents, your siblings, and your community. So the fundamental programs that are in your subconscious mind, that's where the programs are, didn't come from you. They came from other people. I go, why is that relevant? Because up to 70% of the programs that we download in that first 70 years have now been verified to be disempowering, self-sabotaging, and limiting beliefs. And I go, why is that relevant? I say, before you even get conscious at around age 7, where it becomes predominant, you already got programs. And most of these programs have taken away our power. But then you say, so what? And now here comes the last fact, and then we'll get onto our story here in a minute with Lynn. The last fact is this. Science has now recognized that the mind is 2 parts, conscious and subconscious. Subconscious is programs. There's nobody in that part. That's a hard drive. Nobody's in there. But conscious is connected to you, your spirit, your identity, your source. And conscious is created and subconscious is programmed. I go, so great. I go, what? Science has recognized that 95% of the day you are not operating from the creative conscious mind, which can create what you want. You are operating from the programs that you got. And these programs control the character of your life. So the Jesuits were right. First 7 years programming, 95% of the rest of your life is the expression of those programs. And how effective are they? I just give one example. They follow the fate of children adopted into families where cancer is running in the family. I say, so what? The adopted child will get the same family cancer as the natural siblings. But guess what? Totally different genetics. And I say, so why is it relevant? Genes do not control life. It is the programming that controls life. The programming leads to what is called epigenetics. And epigenetics is, well, that's the old story that almost all of you have been programmed with. is that characters of your life are under genetic control, meaning controlled by genes. So I say, why is that relevant? I just programmed you to understand. I say, why is that relevant to that program? And I go, because as far as we know, you didn't pick the genes you came with. If you don't like the traits you have, you can't change those genes. And we're telling you that the genes turn on and off by themselves. And all of a sudden you realize, as almost everyone has been programmed, you are a victim of your heredity. If you got cancer in your family, you got the gene, you're going to get, oh, you got cardiovascular disease, oh, you got the genes. And so what does that mean? You have been programmed to be a victim of your heredity, that you cannot control this, and that life is going to unfold according to the DNA blueprint. And I say, that's old, that's called genetic control. Now I'm going to say there's a new science, epigenetic control. Sounds almost the same, but epi means above. So what's the point? I say, what do I call skin? Epidermis. Why is that relevant? Underneath the top here of the skin is a layer called dermis. Epi means above. So skin is epi, above the dermis. So I go, so what is epigenetic control? And I say it's a revolution, for the reason is it means control above the genes. The point is this: what is that control? Consciousness. Excuse me.
Absolutely, Bruce. And I mean, thank you for that amazing summary of this new science. And this is what's really important about quantum physics. Um, we know, as you said, quantum physics, standard scientists believe there are two kinds of science. There's the science of the small, the tiny quantum particles, and there's the science of the big visible sticks and stones world. But we're now recognizing that that quantum reality is the reality of all of life. And this is not woo-woo stuff. This is in the realm of the scientific lab. For instance, there's the famous double slit experiment. If you've ever read anything about quantum physics, you've heard about this famous study done by Thomas Young, where he took light and he sent it through one slit. And then he had two slits behind that, and then a screen. And he assumed that the light would go through the one slit, go through the separate two, and then have two sort of high focuses of light through the last slits on the screen. That's not what happened. The big and brightest portion of light was right in between those two slits on the back screen. And the reason for that is the two areas of light, the two ways the light went through the slits, created an interference pattern. That means when waves are going at the same, up and down at the same time, they are in synchrony, and the light gets brighter. So he found that, and he said, light must be a wave. And then they started doing this with quantum particles and just single photons, single bits of light going through the slits, and they found the same thing happened with one tiny little photon. And they realized, wow, these little quantum particles are actually waves as well. Now, scientists now have been playing around with giant molecules and putting them through the double slit experiment. University of Vienna, a guy called Anton Zeiliger has been doing these experiments with molecules called buckyballs, which are 60 carbon atoms, filled with 60 carbon atoms, the largest molecules in the universe. They also do this little trick of going through both slits at the same time. And what does that mean? That means that these things, these giant molecules, the building blocks of nature, aren't an actual something yet. They are what scientists call in a state of superposition. And to give you an idea of what that actually is, think of an auditorium, and there's separate chairs in it. And our conception of an atom or anything in the universe is that it's one little chair. But if you're in a state of superposition, a subatomic particle is every single chair in the stadium, all at the same time. It's all possible cells all at the same time. So why is this important? Well, it's important because there's only one thing that turns that, what I like to call unset jello, into something solid and stable, and that is consciousness. Just as Bruce says, the involvement of an observer. When they've done those studies, they've found if somebody's looking at it, the thing only goes through one of the slits, doesn't go through both. So consciousness is really, really important. We've also seen that quantum effects are at the very heart of the singularly most important chemical reaction or biological reaction in the universe, which is photosynthesis, thing that turns sunlight into oxygen that we breathe. The whole center of the plant has a quantum effect. All those little electrons are all in a state of superposition too. They're not an actual set something yet. So quantum effects are essentially the science of life. Now, this is really important when you tie it into what Bruce is saying, because we're talking about things that are malleable, influenceable, and influenceable by consciousness. And as Bruce also said, thoughts aren't locked inside our heads. Now, I know this from my intention experiments. I run these experiments with consciousness researchers, prestigious scientists in various universities around the world. And we did one experiment, for instance, trying to make seeds grow faster. And the seeds were in Tucson, Arizona at the University of Arizona lab. And my audience was in Sydney, Australia. And we chose one of 4 sets of seeds. Scientists didn't know which ones we chose. I showed them a photo of the seeds. We sent intention to the seeds. We again didn't tell the scientists which seeds we sent intention to. They planted the seeds. 5 days later, they harvested them and they measured them. Seeds sent intention grew significantly higher than the controls. Now, we did that study 6 times from 6 different locations, including over the internet. Every single time, seeds sent intention grew significantly higher than the controls. Now, unpack this for a second. Here we are in Sydney, Australia. Those seeds are in a lab 8,000 miles away. And we're not sending intention to the seeds themselves. We're setting intentions to a photographic representation of the seeds. So there's an example of how consciousness is not locked inside our heads, but it's a trespasser that can go to different places and things and affect it. But the most significant method that I've seen of that, doing that in relation to your health, has to do with the power of group intention. And what I've seen in a lot of our Power of 8 groups. For people who don't know what I do, I run these groups of 8 or so people, having them send intention to a member of the group with a health challenge. And consistently, we see that that little group intention, that collective consciousness, tends to supersize it in some amazingly strange way. I watch and monitor the groups over the year. And when I run things like master classes, I run a Power of 8 intention master class that goes on for a whole year, and I monitor the people besides teaching them. And they get into small groups and they stay in their group and they work together. And the extraordinary thing is we witness enormous healings. So what that does is, what that suggests is really profound, because it's talking about consciousness being the thing that can change that program and change whatever physical program that is. And so what we're really saying, Bruce and I, is that we have to completely reconfigure our thoughts about what health and healing are and work out how we can do that and change that program no matter what. You need to unmute yourself, Bruce.
I will do that. Yeah, First of all, it sounds so new agey, and that's what throws a lot of people off, because we've been misdirected. Things like, oh, astrology is new agey stuff and consciousness is new. No, this is fundamental basic science. As a matter of fact, medicine has known about this for nearly 100 years, and it's referred to in medicine as the placebo effect. And I say, what is that? And I say, well, a person has a particular illness. A doctor shows up and says, oh, here's the perfect new drug. This drug just came out. I love it because they also, oh, it's purple. That makes it even better. That actually wasn't an ad. It's purple. And I say, so what? They take this drug, they get better. And then they find out the drug was a sugar pill. And the point that it comes down to is simply this. And what healed them? And the answer is obviously not the sugar pill. It was the belief in the sugar pill. And this has been proven on and on and on again. I go, so what was the healing factor? I said, the healing factor wasn't anything physical at all. It was just the consciousness that changed that biology. And I go, so yeah, that's really cool. That's a result of what you might say positive consciousness. That's placebo. What we've left out, and it's more serious than the positive, is what about negative thinking? And it goes like, oh my God, negative thinking, in medicine called nocebo, is equally powerful to positive thinking, but it works in the opposite direction. Positive thoughts can heal you, negative thoughts can kill you. And that's a true biological understanding. It's not really discussed a lot in medical school at all. I give it about half an hour or something like that. And I go, why? Because guess what this really means? That your consciousness supersedes the pharmaceutical industry, that your consciousness can heal you. Your consciousness is what probably caused you to get sick in the first place, but consciousness can heal you. And again, there was a wonderful study by a friend of mine, Cleve Baxter, where he took cells out of a person, put them in a culture dish, and then moved that culture dish 100 miles away. And the experiment had a split screen with the electrical activity of the cells in the culture dish 100 miles away on one side, and the image of the person on the other half of the screen who donated the cells. And what did they find out? When the person had an emotional response that was being filmed, instantaneously 100 miles away, their cells started to have tremendous electrical activity. And it was always connected to the emotion. It goes, well, the cells are 100 miles away. The point is this: your identity is not encased in here. It's a field. And that field doesn't stop at 100 miles away, as Lynn just said, in the intention experiments. It's thousands of miles of connection. Now, these experiments have been going on for a while. And I go, so why is it relevant? Because they're reproducible. And when they're reproducible, that's a fact of science. If you can see something and create an effect that you can reproduce, that means you have some understanding of what's causing all of that. It's not an accident. And the relevant is very clear that the work that both Lynn and I have been talking about, I talk about biology of belief, and Lynn is talking about the field and the intention experiments, which are another belief thing. We both really understanding is this: we are creating this life experience that we're having. And then you look at it and go around, but this is not what I really want. I go, well, there's the problem. And the problem is this: you've been programmed, and the program runs your life 95% of the day, and it's invisible to you when you're doing it. You go, well, this doesn't make any sense. I go, wait, remember, you have to have a program in the computer to use the brain as a computer. The programs were put in by other people in the first 7 years. And the reason why we play 95% from the program is simply this: imagine your body as a vehicle with a steering wheel. When the conscious mind has its hands on the wheel, the conscious mind, creative mind, takes you to wishes and desires. That's what you're driving. But when you're thinking, this is the problem, because the conscious mind could be looking out the window as you're driving your vehicle. But if you're thinking, the conscious mind is actually looking inside. A thought is not outside, a thought is inside. So you redirect the focus of the conscious mind when you have a thought, not to look out the window, but to go inside. That's where thoughts are. I go, so why is it relevant? 95% of the day is the amount of thinking the average person is doing. 95% of the day, guess what? The driver, the conscious mind, lets go of the wheel. It's going inside to think, but now your vehicle is running down the street. I go, no. Subconscious is autopilot. When the conscious mind lets go, the subconscious steps in and runs the show. It knows how to walk, drive the car, talk, do the job, because these are programs that you acquired. And I go, so why is it relevant? That's why the number 95% of your life is coming from the subconscious programming. And then comes the biggest problem for all, and that is what? When you are thinking and you're not looking out the window and the subconscious's program is playing, are you observing your own program? And the answer is no. Conscious mind's not looking out the window, it's inside. And I go, so why is it relevant? Same story for 30 years. Same story, because I haven't found a better one yet. The same story for 30 years is you have a friend, you know your friend's behavior pretty well, and you know your friend's parent. And one day you see that your friend has the same behavior as their parent. So, you get all excited. You go, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. Back away from Bill. The moment you say that, Bill's going to go, how can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. And everyone laughs because they all had that experience. I say, that is the most profound story. And I go, why? Everyone else can see that Bill behaves like his dad. Who's the one that doesn't see it? And I go, Bill. I say, why doesn't Bill see his own behavior? Because that's when he's thinking and he's not observing the behavior coming out. So I go, oh my God, is this Bill? I go, no, all of us. All of us are Bill. All of us are running these programs. And as we're running the programs, we're the ones that don't see them. Now I'll give you a little number that you may not want to hear, but it's a true number. About 70% of the programs are disempowering, self-sabotaging, and limiting beliefs. And so that means 95% of the day, you are not advancing toward wishes and desires. You are just manifesting programs that are disempowering. And this is a very critical time in planetary history right now to say, wait a minute, this planet is in a serious situation. We're facing what is called the sixth mass extinction of life, which is due to human behavior. And I go, so why is it relevant? It says, well, we better start paying attention to our behavior because this is causing our own extinction. And the relevance about that is consciousness is creating this. So you want to get out of the game, you have to get out of the program. And this is what Lynn's experiments on the intention experiment are. Get out of that program, create an intention and forward it, and then observe what is the consequence of a thought that, and it's not local. Remember, you can move your cells 100 miles away. Matter of fact, little story very quickly is when a woman is pregnant, the fetal cells that are growing the child, many of the fetal cells go into the maternal system and become stem cells in the mother. And I say, so why is it relevant? Because it's also been identified that many of these fetal stem cells go up into the brain. I go, yeah, so why is that relevant? And the answer is, remember the culture dish that the person whose cells they are, when they have an emotional thing going on, that the cells in the culture dish become activated? When a child of that mother is in trouble somewhere, the consciousness of that child, like in a car accident or something, is like this, it's broadcast. And guess what? The cells of that child are in the mother's brain. And when those cells get activated, like the cells in the culture dish, it brings the consciousness to the mother that something is wrong. That's how mothers can tell about their children, no matter where they are in the world. If something goes wrong with that child, they know why, because they're carrying the child's cells in their own body. And the experience of that child is activating those cells, and the mother is connected. That's a wonderful part of nature that allows mothers to be aware of what's going on with their children, because the role of mother is nurturing. And nature says, yeah, well, here's some information, what's going on with your child. And a mother can experience it. And it's, guess what? It's not physical, it's the field that the mother is reading. Right, Lynn?
Absolutely, absolutely. And just just following up on that, Bruce, you're right. There is no difference between positive and negative intention. I really like to say that positive intention is more powerful, but intention doesn't have a morality, and negative intention can work just as well. And most of the time, illness is a form of negative intention. Here's some interesting ideas about how to turn that around, though. One of the fascinating books I've read recently is Radical Remission. about the woman who had cancer and she reversed it. And she started studying other patients with cancer who had been able to reverse their cancer. And she found that there were 9 different things that successful people in healing themselves all shared. And here's the interesting part. Only 2 of them had to do with anything physical, diet and supplements. The rest was all psychospiritual changes, major changes in their minds, major changes in their emotions. And one of the things that I found in my research and also with my Power of 8 groups is one of the most powerful ways of changing and healing has to do with community. There are so many studies showing that community is probably more important to people than air or food. That people, when they have that kind of genetic predisposition that Bruce talks about, for instance, there was a study looking at depression and people who had the depression gene, and they looked at Americans, with this gene and people from Far East Asia. And the Far East Asia genetic propensity was like 80%. It was, you were really likely to get depression according to standard genetics if they looked at their gene profile. However, they then looked at the way that they set up their communities and they compared them. And in America, of course, we're very individualistic. People tend to be pretty isolated. And when they looked at the 2 groups, even though the people in the Far East were more likely to get depression, they were far less depressed. What had happened is in those communities, people have close community ties, and that overrode their genetic expression. Same thing in the US. They were more likely to be depressed, even though their gene profile wasn't as severe. So what does this say? This basically says that one of nature's great healers is community, is small groups. And I've certainly seen that in all of the studies and all of the Power of 8 groups we run. Putting people together in a small group tends to be one of the major ways of overcoming all of those programs. They found in studies, for instance, of people with religious beliefs, people who are religious and hold their religious beliefs, that can help them in healing, but not anywhere near as much as people who pray in a group, people who even meet in church as a group. It's the healing effect is the doing it together. And that's what we've found over and over again with Power of 8 groups. People who couldn't override what they were doing singly were overwhelmed by the program. When worked on within the group, where a small group intention sent intention to them, that became the way that they could do it. I had a woman in our Power of 8 intention masterclass this year who had a terrible sugar addiction. It was so bad, she would get up in the middle of the night to feed it. And then it would disturb her sleep. She'd have to sleep all day. As a result, her group set an intention for her to overcome it, and she did immediately. She's now been off sugar for most of the year. She's been exercising. She's lost weight. She's has a better relationship with her husband. They did what she couldn't do, and it was the support of that group that was so powerful and healing that it changed the program. And we've, of course, seen that with even more severe conditions like cancer. We had a guy who was supposed to have his legs amputated. Cancer was, spread throughout his body. When the doctors went in to operate to amputate his legs, they found then this was after his group did a batch of intentions for him, that the cancer had coalesced into one easily removable lump, and they were able to take that out. His legs were saved. I mean, we see this kind of miracle all the time. And I believe, as Bruce says, it's all about energy, and it's our energy that changes. I've been trying to study and figure out what is so powerful about a Power of 8 group. I've been looking at it for years and years now, and a small group intention. And I think there's group effects, of course. When people get together in a group, they have a kind of collective effervescence, as Emile Durkheim, the French psychologist, once put it. But it's all about also altruism. There's something about getting off of yourself that is really, really powerful. And the science shows that. But there's finally just feeling love of a group of strangers. That is one of the big healing mechanisms, I think, that we're talking about, that has the ability to override something you can't do yourself. So, what Bruce and I are really saying is that illness is mental, and healing is mental. And that is what I think is the most powerful message of all. You can heal your life. And even more importantly, a group can heal your life too.
Well, this is so important because this is where Lynn and my work really overlap about the nature of the field and influencing it. And let's go back for a second and remember, I could read your consciousness with a probe that doesn't even touch your head, which means you're broadcasting consciousness. And I go, well, let's give an analogy. A tuning fork vibrates. And so imagine the brain is a tuning fork and it's vibrating out a specific frequency. And I go, okay. I say, so what? I say, but if a number of people are broadcasting the exact same thought, the exact same consciousness, then there's numbers of tuning forks. And the more tuning forks there are, the more the power or amplitude of that broadcast becomes. If I'm just thinking a thought alone, I'm not going to change the world. But the more people that will share the same thought that I am sharing at the same time is how many tuning forks are in harmony at the same time. Each tuning fork is a power unit, and the more tuning forks, the more powerful. And this is what led me to what I wrote The Biology of Belief, which is about how my own consciousness is affecting my own biology. And in the process of just finishing that book, and I thought, okay, and all of a sudden, I said, oh my God, I say, culture, civilization is driven by what? I say, collective tuning forks sharing the same thought. And that when that thought changes as a group, then civilization changes as well. It's not a coincidence. It's because collectively we are manifesting a global scene collectively. And if we change the consciousness collectively, we change the worldview of what's going on. And this is what we're being awakened to at this time, because the consciousness we've been employing, which has been programmed, is responsible for causing what is called the sixth mass extinction of life, which includes us. And that mass extinction event is not 1,000 years, not 100 years. It's within this century that humans are going to be challenged to survive on this planet because of the upending of the web of life, which our behavior has caused. And so I go, so why is it relevant? I go, whether it's a group of 8 and they focus their intention on one person, then that's 8 tuning forks all focusing on that one person. So if that person has a tuning fork that's not in harmony, the power of 8 amplified by 8 others overrides the individual. And that's why a person with a problem can be influenced by the other 7 or 8 people around them, because if they're all broadcasting that energy, the recipient is going to be empowered by all the people. And the more people that share that broadcast of consciousness, the greater the manifestation is on this planet. And this is why this is such an important wake-up call at this time. Human behavior is creating the problem, and the only way out of the problem is to recognize that we're creating this. It's not happening to us. We're creating this, because if we want to change it, we don't have to go out and change the world. We have to change who we are, because we're broadcasting whatever images we've been programmed to believe. Again, this becomes so critical that these programs that we get override our biology via epigenetics, the control above with a single gene, which is a blueprint to make a protein. That's what genes are. Blueprints to make proteins. There are 100,000 different proteins that come together to create cells in humans. And I go, so the genes are influencing this. And I go, and epigenetics, listen to this, standard belief, gene makes protein A. Fine. New understanding, the same gene can be influenced by the person's perception of their environment to create, listen to this, over 3,000 different proteins from the same gene. That's what epigenetics does. It doesn't change the gene, it changes the readout. It's like cut and paste. It can take a readout and cut it and paste it and change the readout, making 3,000 different proteins. And I go, great. And I say, well, some of those created proteins are healthy proteins, and some of them can be causing a problem. And I'll give you an example that we've been just mentioned a couple of times, the idea of cancer. Oh, cancer, oncogenes, genes cause cancer. False. 100% false. There is not one gene that causes cancer. Huh? I go, no, the gene is correlated with cancer. It's the lifestyle and the programming that precipitates the activity of the gene. The gene, cancer gene, does not cause cancer, does not turn on and off. That's a belief statement that's totally wrong. Genes are blueprints. How can they turn on and off? It's the architect, which is the mind, which adjusts the genetic readout. So you can come with perfectly healthy genes and get cancer. As a matter of fact, 90% of cancer doesn't even have a hereditary linkage to family. It's created because of the life of that individual. And remission, as we started with Lynn was talking about, remission is what? I don't have to change the gene. I have to change the consciousness about that illness or my, whatever problem I'm facing, because I am creating this. And now this is hard. Why? Oh my God, he's going to say the word. He's going to say it. I'm going to say it. Get ready. Responsibility. Oh, geez, I hate that word. But here's the point about it. We are responsible for our own health and biology. That if we keep looking outside, the germs did this, COVID did this. I go, no, it's your consciousness that allowed that to express itself. And this is why cancer remission, I don't have to take the cancer cells out. I don't have to use chemotherapy and all that. I have to change consciousness. The gene didn't cause this. My behavior caused this, behavior that's not in harmony. So health is harmony and disease is disharmony. That's basically the bottom line of this whole game right here. And when you understand this and start recognizing the power of the field, and that's why it's so cool for me to walk in and start to talk about the field. And I know, I don't have to explain it. Read Lynn's book. It's all in there. It is a field that shapes matter. And the problem is we want to change the matter. And I go, no, don't change the matter, change the field. The matter will automatically change when the field changes. And this is so hard for people because it's like, oh, that's so new agey. And I go, that's not new age. It is the hardest, most valid science on the planet that recognizes this. And the idea is, I didn't read about it in the paper. Of course, the industry, pharmaceutical industry, with all the money that it has restricted all this information that Lynn and I are talking about. Why? Because what does the pharmaceutical industry depend on? You buying drugs. But what if you can create the drugs in your own head, which we can in a better fashion than the ones they sell us? Then I said, well, then I wouldn't need to buy any drugs. I go, this is why, although the placebo effect has been known all this time, why the field effect is now known all about this stuff. Why is this not part of medical education as a primary insight? Why, a patient comes to the doctor, they got what we call a comorbidity, meaning you have some issues that are already affecting your health before you got there, diabetes, overweight, heart problems or anything like that. And they go to the doctor. And you would say, well, if we know what we're talking about, then the doctor would really emphasize, listen, you have to straighten out your lifestyle. You have to go home and take care of your consciousness and change how you're believing and doing all this and become healthy. Start to become healthy. Eat well, take vitamins and minerals, exercise, stuff like that. And I go, nope. You go to the doctor, got 3 minutes to say, what's your problem? You tell them I saw this drug on TV and that's what I want. And then they'll write a script. They're drug dealers in that case. But the reality about it is what? They'll give you the script for a pharmaceutical drug before they will emphasize you must take care of your health and not depend on the pharmaceutical drugs, which are not anywhere as powerful or as effective as the consciousness itself. And I go, yep, go to the doctor. He's not going to say, here's a script, go out and get healthy and eat this, natural food and do natural things. That's not what they do. They're pushing pharmaceutical. I go, is a doctor responsible? And I go, look, I taught in a medical school for years. No, that's the programming that doctors get in their medical school career. And that programming is manipulated by the pharmaceutical industry. I was there, I was involved with it. And the money that pharmaceuticals throw to medical schools and do all that, they manipulate this. So I say, why is it relevant? A real doctor would say, listen, you have to take care of your diabetes. You can't eat like this anymore. You have to let go of the stress. We have to work on that. But no, here's some insulin. Just take the insulin. I go, you're not empowering people. And we have this power. Placebo, nocebo. Whether I'm going to be healthy or whether I'm going to die was a consciousness. And consciousness is not tangible. It's a, here comes the word, Len, get ready. It's a field of information. And this is what we have to manage right now, the field. What do you believe? What's your program? And if you don't have a particular belief, guess what? Television will tell you what that belief should be. And then now you've lost your power again.
Well, absolutely. And it's, I just want to say, Bruce, I was just counting up in just a couple of our Power of 8 groups. We have cured this year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cases of cancer. One of them was the guy had a life expectancy of just a few weeks. Some of the other ones were friends of friends. So the group just did an intention for a friend once and turned the cancer around. The most remarkable thing I ever saw, and you spoke at this one time too, at the TCCHE in London, you've spoken several times. Well, the last time I was there a year ago, we had a woman in a wheelchair who was paralyzed from the neck down. And after I put people into Power of 8 groups, had them send healing intention to a woman in the group who, and to various people around the audience, as I always do, I asked for, comments afterward. Did you feel anything? Did anything happen? And the last person who they suggested should speak was a woman called Maya. And she was the woman in the front with the motorized wheelchair. And they were trying to help her. And she said, no, I don't need that. And she stood up. And this is a woman who had been paralyzed with idiopathic paralysis. She hadn't broken her neck, but it was some weird thing. She got paralyzed for the last week, and she stood up. It was remarkable. I mean, I was flabbergasted by it, but so was the whole audience. And I spoke to her afterward, and she said it was all about, she felt more love than she'd ever felt in her life from that little group. So much so, it was almost too much. She had to pass it on. So she passed it on to a relative of hers with cancer. But it was at that moment of the passing on that essentially she felt like her wheelchair was going through the floor. So, and that may have been the moment she was healed. What I find over and over again is an experience that people in these groups share all the time of a sense of oneness. So in a sense, we don't get a chance to feel the field, we get a chance to feel our own little separateness. We feel our own little congealed batch of energy, and we don't feel attached and engaged to the rest of the world. And maybe in this group intention experience, it seems to be, and this seems to be backed up by the scientific studies we've done on Power of 8 groups, people seem to experience a sense of oneness. They get out of themselves. The parts of the brain involved in making us feel separate are dialed down. Those brain waves are diminished. And So are the parts of the brain involved with worry, doubt, negativity. They seem to also be diminished. And so these are people experiencing a state of ecstatic oneness. And I think it may be that sense of connection, the thing that we don't really experience in our lives, that is our true healer. And that is probably one big reason why these small groups are so effective. But as Bruce says, it's all about taking back your power, recognizing the extraordinary power you have that people um, have poo-pooed. You knew it when you were a child. You knew you had this power. Then your teachers told you no. Your parents may have told you no. The scientists, bog standard scientists, told you no. This is the way the world is essentially a machine. And so you grow to believe it, and you do feel disempowered in your life. But our talk today is really all about the power you have to heal. So before we leave you, let's take some questions, Bruce, shall we? Let me
Yeah,
see.
I'd just
We've
like to.
got loads of people here asking some questions.
Can I just add one thing? Because
Sure.
if you haven't read a book called "Dying to Be Me" by Anita Morjani, here's a woman who had cancer for 4 years. Her oncologist worked with her for 4 years, and she, on the last days of her life, she was on life support. She was so emaciated in her body that lumps of cancer were visible over her body. And she went into a coma, and her oncologist called her family and said, this is the end. So you better come, because the coma is like the last stage before she's going to die. And she had an out-of-body experience, but it dealt with a conscious experience that she had with her father and her family that upset the entire family and sort of pushed her out as the black sheep of the family. And it really just hurt her so much. And the relevance about it was simply this, is that she resolved that issue in her consciousness. And guess what happened? She came out of the coma, and the cancer started to disappear. It was gone within 2 weeks. She was on her last day of life and changed her mind. And the moment that happened, the cancer started to go away completely. She's healed, she's wonderful, she's healthy. And the reality was, here's a woman who pushed it to the last, right at the finish line, and changed it at the last minute of her life. And the cancer just went away. She went off. As soon as she came out of the coma, the machines that were keeping her alive were disconnected, because all of a sudden she was back. And I just want people to understand, the reason why I'm saying it so much is that how fast did that change? It wasn't weeks of healing and like that at all. It was instantaneous change of consciousness, instantaneously changed her biology and brought her back to health in an instant. And so to me, that's really important.
Absolutely, Bruce. And Anita is also our dear friend, and her story is unbelievable and so empowering. We've got some questions. I'll take this and then I'll pass it over to you, because I think we could both say something
Yes.
about this, Bruce. How do we use this in respect to COVID? So I'm going to talk about, we've done loads of stuff about COVID in my other part of my work, which is What Doctors Don't Tell You. And we've been covering this now for months. We've done cover stories on your COVID battle plan. We've looked at how successful a vaccine could be or not. We've looked at glutathione, vitamin C, a bunch of things, and we've run teleseminars on it, etc. And one of the things that we've talked to with integrative doctors who are actually on the front line healing and preventing COVID is simply this. You can take responsibility for boosting your immune system. And what they suggest is a very simple 4-stage process. Number one, a diet that is low in carbs. So a paleo or even a ketogenic diet. Starve those little viruses. And number two, high doses of vitamin C. Number three, high doses of vitamin D. Both of those are really important for boosting your immune system. And finally, one of our doctors, well, two of them have been working with iodine. Now, Bruce knows this. If you go in for an operation, the first thing they're going to do is swathe the place that they're going to cut open with iodine, because it contact kills any bug or virus in 30 seconds. So what they suggest is taking a salt pipe or a nebulizer and just putting a few drops of Lugol's iodine in and breathing that a few times a day, particularly at the first sign of COVID. That kills it dead. So just those four things are really helpful. But the other thing I think is even more important vis-a-vis the conversation we've been having, which is all about your belief in your own immune system. And Bruce can talk to that even more than me. He's an immunologist. But we are so frightened and disempowered by this thing we have, it, which has been talked up on the media. We're all scared stiff about this. And so we're not able to trust the innate genius that this body is in healing us and keeping us well if we take good care of it. Bruce, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, it's very important. And I just saw a chat. Somebody said how much vitamin C, and I take 2 grams, I think, 2,000 milligram things a day. I take vitamin D every day. I also use silver colloid, which is like iodine. So I take that and swallow it, and as it goes down, it kills things as well. But what's really important that I need to emphasize is this. Remember, we said programming is what is creating the character of our lives. I go, yes, absolutely it is. And if you have good programming, then you know your life is just smooth and wonderful. But if you get bad programming, that's when the issues show up, that things are out of control. Now, when it comes to programming, let's just recognize this. First 7 years is the download of programs that run 95% of the time. So I say, so what did we learn? Most people have regular doctors. I go, so why is that relevant? I say, when you were a kid, if daddy was sick, he went to the doctor. If mommy was sick, she went to the doctor. If you're sick, you go to the doctor. And I say, what is the learning that a child gets from this behavior? And the answer is, we don't understand our health, but the doctor does. And the doctor is the one with the knowledge. So I defer my opinion to the opinion of the doctor, because that was what the program was. The doctor knows, you don't. I go, so what does that mean? I say, well, then whenever the doctor says something, it overrides your own belief system in your conscious creative mind. I want to stay well, but the doctor says you're going to get sick, you get sick. I say, well, who won? 95% says the doctor is more accurate. I go, so why is that relevant? Well, we are being broadcast all the time with the idea that the COVID is the most lethal damn virus thing ever. And I go, oh, Jesus, that's not true. It's not true at all. I go, why? Because we already know that the COVID is not as lethal as what they said. And I said, yeah, but people are dying. And I go, people are dying. I say, who are the ones that are dying? I say, these are ones that are already compromised people. Older people, yes, as they get old and they're in infirmed or they're in nursing homes, they're already compromised. That's why they're there. So that's a group, okay, that is susceptible. And I go, yeah, but the compromises that we live with are the broadcasts that keep coming toward us saying, be afraid, be very afraid. The virus is coming to kill you. Millions of people are going to die. I go, who are you feeding, my conscious mind or my program? You're feeding the program running 95% of the day that says, I believe you. And I go, why is it relevant? The belief in that fear generates stress hormones. That's what happens in fear, stress hormones. I go, so why is it relevant? Stress hormones shut off the immune system. They do this to conserve energy because the immune system uses a lot of energy, but the stress hormones are designed to run away from a saber-toothed tiger. So when the stress hormones are put into the system shuts down the immune system to conserve energy to run away from the tiger. So I say, then every news broadcast, when you walk away from that broadcast, the subconscious program, doctors know what it is. So they're the ones that know. I'm just a person. I don't know. So whatever the doctor said, all of a sudden overrides my program. And I get stressed. And I say, that's the first thing, you just compromise your immune system. And I go, here's the simple fact. Is the virus as virulent and deadly as they say it is, or is the patient weak and susceptible to this virus? And I go, well, which one is it? And I go, heck, 80, 90% of people get the COVID, never went to a doctor, never go to the hospital. They live with a flu. Then who are the ones that are dying? I go, these are the compromised people. They're already compromised. Old age, what we call comorbidity. Like what? Well, if you have diabetes, if you're overweight, if you have heart issues, these are issues that are already in your system, chronically affecting you, weakening you before even the COVID showed up. Now the COVID shows up and I go, okay, the immune system is challenged. Yeah, it's already overworking for those with comorbidities. And I go, this is why Americans have the highest death rate. I go, why? 40% of Americans have 2.7 comorbidities. That's almost 3 comorbidities. Every comorbidity challenges your immune system. So 2.7 comorbidities essentially makes your immune system not very effective at all. And that's why the COVID has taken over. Is the COVID that lethal, or is the patient that weak? And the answer is, it's us. As I said, you go to the doctor. Do they tell you, listen, you want to avoid the COVID problems? Then go eat healthy, take vitamins and supplements, exercise, and de-stress as much as you can. I go, no, here's a ventilator and here's some drugs and here's some stuff. And I go, you're not empowering the people. You're still taking away their power because you're suggesting that they're the victim and your drugs and your processes are the way out. They never gave the power back to the people that said, hey, you're way overweight. This is a big issue. I think you should be working on that regardless of COVID. But with COVID, it's a bigger problem. And I go, so are we directing healing to the patient? Or are we just going to direct it to the broadcast that you're going to get stressed out with? It causes the broadcast already, just watching the news shuts down your immune system. And the reality is, we know that. Doctors don't really know that. Why? It's not the big deal in medical education. Medical education is, there's a symptom, there's a drug. You got the symptom, I'll give you the drug. Nowadays, like in the US, they advertise the drugs on the TV every 15 minutes. So when the patient goes to the doctor, they don't say, doctor, tell me what I need. The patient tells the doctor, I saw this drug and I want that effect. I want that happiness that comes from taking that drug. And I go, oh my God. They're bypassing the medical profession by advertising directly to the patient which drugs you need. And I go, we don't need any damn drugs. We are creators. You can walk across fire. Hey, in the South, in the US, they have people that work themselves up into religious ecstasy, fundamentalists. I go, so what? I say they do what is called testify. What's that mean? Testifying in these religious organizations means you do something no normal person in their right mind would ever do, but you do it because you know God will protect you. Sure as hell, no question, God will protect you. So many of them play with poisonous snakes, snake handlers. The one I want to tell you about, and I have a video, it's so cool, that shows people that will testify will drink strychnine poison in toxic doses and not have any adverse effects in the belief that God protects them. Now, that's not 99% belief. That belief is like pregnancy. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant, but there's no 99 in there, okay? And the idea is these people have this belief. I would never touch a drop of that strychnine because my belief isn't as strong as their belief. But I say, so what is it? I say, you can walk across hot coals, you can drink strychnine poison, and all these things. I say, these are things that we as creators can do. If you give up the creative ability and then operate from the disempowering programs, you lost your power. And the idea is these programs and these people making money, they've been knowing about this for 400 years. As I said, the idea that the programming controls your life, Jesuits, 400 years. Give me a child until he's 7, I'll show you the man. And I go, do you think the powers to be ignored this fact? Oh, hell no. They're programming kids ever younger than ever before. When you see an infant walking around with an iPad, that's like, ooh, that's an interesting program right there. So my note to, for this part is simply this. Are you going to be creating your life, or are you going to be using the program to manifest your life? If you're using the program, you've already been compromised, because most of the programs are disempowering in the first place. And that consciousness is a field. It's like a tuning fork. And the more people that share consciousness is why I wrote the second book, Spontaneous Evolution. I realized my personal consciousness affects me, but what if collectively we share the same consciousness? I go, oh my God, that's the nature of civilization and culture. And we're in a place now that says the beliefs that we have right up to this minute are causing the problems on this planet. And we are being called upon as a human population to say, you are creating this, and now time to take your power back. And that's standing something like the field, which is, that's the part that's being expressed, and that's the part you don't see. And I go, yeah, you might not see it, but it's the controlling factor of life. The field is the sole governing agency of matter, Albert Einstein.
And, just finishing on COVID, one thing you should understand too, as Bruce says, it's the fear that is disempowering us more and more and more, so that we feel that the only recourse is to take drugs and take vaccines and do whatever they tell us and isolate, etc. But you should know, and again, we've been studying this, my organization, for months and months, and we've looked at, number one, the test itself is only about 15, 16% accurate. It throws up so many false positives that it throws into question the actual numbers of cases that are out there. Number two, when they record deaths in the UK, and this is happening in the US and elsewhere too, they will record a death of somebody who's died from something, but may have had a COVID test 28 days before, and they will call that COVID. In the UK now, there are no more flu cases of ordinary seasonal flu. They're all being called COVID. So we can't really trust the cases out there. I'm not saying people aren't dying of or with COVID, I should say. But as Bruce says, the overwhelming majority have comorbidities. They have something else that's wrong, or they're grossly overweight. America, a huge percent of Americans are clinically obese, and that is a huge risk factor for something like COVID. So the statistics are not being accurate. The media is pumping us up with fear. And so we are looking at something that even the World Health Organization says has a mortality rate of ordinary flu. The problem is, with ordinary flu, you don't get nightly statistics on the nightly news about how many people died that day. But a large number of people do actually die of regular flu every year. So part of the issue, the big problem here, is fear. The huge problem here is fear. And as I say, we've interviewed a couple of doctors on the front line healing their patients, even one of them, Dr. David Brownstein, a Michigan doctor, integrative specialist. He's healed hundreds of patients, even patients with cancer or heart disease who got COVID. He got them better, and he got them better in a short period of time with just using exactly what I talked about, but amping up vitamin C intravenously, intramuscular ozone, and the other things we talked about. And he got them better, even very, very sick patients. So it's about really understanding what Bruce is really talking about is the marvel that is our immune system. If Anita Moorjani can turn around, she had cancer riddling through her body, and it went by a change of mind. And that gives you a sense of the power you have. We have a few more questions, Bruce.
I'll try to answer shorter, because if I can answer them shorter, we can get more questions.
Okay. Well, somebody said Now I have to answer this woman, Cheryl, because she said she's in Australia. She read my book, The Power of Eight, and she saw such phenomenal successes. She did an intention for her dad with the Power of Eight group who had a major stroke to heal him. He's better. He looks better in himself, but he's still in his wheelchair and still with absolutely no memory. It's not like the examples in my book. And she said, could I give her a reason why and why they haven't had the same success? Number one, it's not 100%. You know, I can't guarantee you that it will always work. What I usually say to my master classes and other classes is take it at a stage, one stage at a time, do your intentions. So this is one issue. One issue may be take it in baby steps. Do an intention for something to be better, not for him to just get up out of his wheelchair and walk. Do an intention that, first of all, you find the right therapist who can help him. Secondly, I would suggest you look at constraint therapy. We've just written about it in What Doctors Don't Tell You. They are doctors working with the problem with stroke victims is oftentimes if you lose, say, the movement in your right side of your body, the doctors will often ignore that part and just let you work with the part that still moves. And constraint therapy does exactly the opposite. It ties up the part that moves and forces the body to move the part that has been paralyzed. And here's what happens. That miraculous body we have creates new neural pathways, again, power of the mind, but creates new neural pathways that enable it to move again. So I would look into that and I would start doing intentions to find the right person to help him. And then I would do intentions individually for memory, etc. Also, you might want to find out more from my website and the work that I do, the classes I do, etc., about making sure that you're doing it all properly. So have a look, Cheryl, at that. Let's find some other things for you. Let's see. Okay. Let's see some more questions about, okay. How can I be immune from the mass belief about the world that the world is broadcasting belief they must be fearful of this pandemic? Do you have any views on that, Bruce?
Well, just basically, that was a choice. You want to watch it? Can you watch it with a clarity that you understand what they're trying to do, or are you just watching it, soaking it in like a sponge? That makes all the difference in the world. I can hear all this stuff, but it doesn't bother me because I have a belief system that is completely different. I'm one of the old guys. I should be very afraid. Not. Why? They want me to be afraid, because if I'm afraid, then I actually reduce the effectiveness of my immune system, because stress shuts off the immune system. It's a given fact. It's so powerful in shutting off the immune system that when a doctor wants to transplant an organ from person A into person B, and they don't want the recipient to reject the graft, they give the patient stress hormones before the operation, because that inhibits the immune system so that the graft can take without being rejected right away. They use stress hormones therapeutically to shut off the immune system. But I say, well, that was a medical use of it, but what about television and radio and internet and all that? I go, hey, same cause of stress, same problem. You have to be sure in yourself. And if you have to make sure your subconscious agrees with you. And that's the harder part, because the conscious mind, creative, can have any thought. Oh, I'm okay. I'm healthy as anything. And I go, and how about the subconscious? I go, well, that's the one that says, when the doctor says that, then that's true. And I go, well, then the truth is, if you hear from the doctor and the doctor gives you a negative thing, that's true. It's not even questionable, because 95% of your life comes from that program. So I can live in this world. Why? Because I don't have those subconscious programs. At least most of them I cleared out by rewriting those subconscious beliefs. And the reality is, I go forward every year when flu season anyway was coming. It's like, go to flu shot. And I go, hell no, I don't have time for a flu. I got a lot of work to do. and realize that that's really important. You can override all this. You are so powerful, and yet everyone outside that's going to make money off of you will tell you you don't have any power, but they can provide it for a fee. How much? How much power do you want? Pay for it.
Thanks, Bruce. Monica has said, I have advanced ovarian cancer. What are the 5 steps I should take to heal myself? I'll answer this, Monica. First of all, get yourself a Power of 8 group. My own Power of 8 group has been working with a guy who had stage 4 prostate cancer. It had spread to his bones, his bladder, his liver, etc. He's been doing integrative therapy, and he's been doing this Power of 8 group, and we now have a normal PSA count for him, and any of the metastases are gone, and there's just a tiny spot of it left. So this is after about 6 or 7 months. So number 1, get yourself a Power of 8 group. Number 2, biggest question, what do you believe is going to heal you? When I first started doing What Doctors Don't Tell You, I used to tell people all of the statistics about whether chemotherapy doesn't work or does work or this or that or the other. Now I don't. Now I realize the most important healer of all is what you believe is going to work. So search inside yourself and think about, what do I feel is going to work? Is it surgery? Is it alternative therapies? Is it chemotherapy? What resonates most with you? Or is it a mix of all of the above? Go with your heart and what you believe is going to work, and then embrace it with every fiber of your being, because as Bruce says, it's your mind that's going to get you better. So whether it's nothing or whether it's everything, you have to believe in it wholeheartedly. So that's what I would say. Also, clean up your diet. Evidence demonstrates over and over again that a ketogenic diet starves cancer. Cancer feeds off sugar, so get rid of sugar in your diet. And sugar is not only sugar itself, refined sugar, but all the white stuff, processed foods, potatoes, white rice, all of that stuff, all turns into sugar in your body, and that feeds cancer. So starve it. Go on a ketogenic, paleo or ketogenic diet. And
can I add just something very quickly?
Sure, go ahead.
Very quickly. As I said, the subconscious programming is the most likely source of the problems that we have, because the conscious mind is not the one that's saying, oh, I want cancer, I want this. No, that's not conscious, that's below. And I say, but what's the relevance by why women between breast cancer and ovarian cancer they're so high? And the answer is this: what is the programming a woman gets when she's a child about being female? Almost all of it is disempowering. Then I say, why is that relevant? Because then the subconscious mind says, as a female, I don't have power. And then the subconscious mind, thinking all the way through, says, what if I take the female parts out? Then I'm not female anymore. Then I can get my power back. That's a simple, step-by-step thing. How can I empower myself as a female when everything in my life, whether it's a job I get paid for or any other thing, not listening to me because I'm a female, then how can I be more powerful? Not be a female. I say, how do you do that? And I say, well, breast cancer is a start, and ovarian cancer is also part of the same symptom. So it's something that's probably deeper in there in that subconscious that has you being disempowered, and the subconscious working out to say, oh, well, the easiest thing is not to be a woman. And that's usually what the big causes are, because why women's reproductive tract issues are so prominent in the cancer field. It's not a coincidence. As a matter of fact, each society, their different cultures have different cancers that are reflective of their society. That's where they got to work. I got to shorten that. Thank you.
Okay, no, that's brilliant. Let's answer one. I'm so sorry. We're going to have to take just one final question. So, Helene asked, how do you change the programming in the unconscious? What ways are there? I need information on how to change my current programming. Well, One of the things that I teach, and I teach in my master class, is actually retro intention. And what it does, I mean, I can't really go into the technique right now, but what it does is it changes your sense of disempowerment. And that's the big problem I find that oftentimes people have when they've had a trauma or they've been programmed with certain disempowering thoughts as a child. Let's say you were in school and you weren't getting math and your teacher made you stand up or had everybody else's name on the chalkboard except for you, and just said, "Well, so and so is really stupid in math," and you've just hung your head in shame, and that stayed with you. Um, there are many cases of Sam Keen is a philosopher whose mother told him he wasn't very good in mechanical stuff, and so he avoided that and he became a philosopher, thinking, well, I should never do anything mechanical. I should never change light bulbs. When he took a test about aptitude as an adult, he found that his ability at mechanical things in engineering was in the genius level. And so I think about all of the incredible inventions that we've been denied because Sam Keen's mom told him he was useless at at mechanical stuff. So that's the kind of things that can stay with you. So if you are conscious of it, you can work on changing the program. The other thing, of course, is a Power of Eight group who can help re-empower you by working on those kinds of things as well. Bruce, do you want to add anything to the unconscious stuff?
Yes, I simply want people to understand this is that, yes, we get programmed, and we got programmed in the last trimester of pregnancy through age 7. And if I asked you right now, okay, what program did you get when before you were born? It's like, what do I know? I say, okay, the program you got between 0 and 1. No, I don't remember. Okay, between 1 and 2. No, I don't remember. About 3 to 4, you'll start to remember events that are shaping that program. So I say, why is it relevant? Because what are your subconscious programs? Ha! And I go, answer is simple. 95% of your life is coming from subconscious programs. The point is simply this. All you have to do is assess your life in this way. I go, the things that you like that come into your life, they come in because you obviously have programs to encourage them to be there. But, and this is the one I need people to understand, the things that you desire, wish for, really want in your life, and you have to work hard, struggle, sweat over it, putting a lot of, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to work on it, make it happen. Why are you working so hard? And the answer is this, because your subconscious program about that, what you want, is not supporting you. And you're going to try with your conscious mind to override that subconscious program. I'm working on it. I'm going to make it happen. I go, that's not the easy way to change the program. So A, what are your programs? Look at your life, where you struggle. That's not because the universe is against you. It's because there's a program of limitation in some product. And therefore, if you look at your life and reflect on it, then you could say, I want to reprogram it in this way. And I'll just very quickly say there are 3 fundamental ways of reprogramming. One, self-hypnosis, which is theta. That's the get into the brain state of theta. That's what you were in the first 7 years. That's called hypnosis. And I say every night when you go to bed, the brain high function when you're awake and working, and then it slows down when you're coming home and relaxing. And then there's a point where your consciousness disconnects because the vibration is lower, but that's when you're in theta hypnosis. So putting earphones on your head at night when you go to bed, playing a program of what you want to be real, repeating this, that means you're sleeping, conscious mind's gone, but the subconscious is downloading. So that's called self-hypnosis. That's number 1. Number 2, after self-hypnosis period, 7 years, you learn new programs, how to drive a car, play a music instrument, do your job, whatever. These are learned. I say, how'd you do it? Repetition. And if you want to change it, then you have to repeat a new behavior. It's not a sticky note. That's a suggestion. It's a repetition. It's a practice of habituating. The new agey thing, fake it till you make it. You're not happy? Then every day just say, I'm happy all day long. And the repetition will generate happy, and you'll wake up one day and you'll be happy without even saying it. And then lastly, the most expedient way to change things is energy psychology. A new version of psychology engages what is called super learning. Very quickly, super learning, a person can read a book by moving their finger down the page, just like that, read every word on the page. That's how fast they can read. I go, that's an example of super learning, but energy psychology engages that super learning, so you can download new programs in minutes to an hour, rather than in days or weeks. And just very quickly, my website, brucelipton.com. Under resources are about 25 different modalities of energy psychology. So you can look at one that seems to be the one that makes you feel, oh, that's a good one, do it. So yeah, there are ways to do this, but what are your programs? Just check your life and recognize the thing you're struggling with is not because the universe won't give it to you, it's because your own program has limitation on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. That is brilliant. And yes, energy psychology have so many different mechanisms they have, and they all work. And also, I just add to that only one thing: get a Power of 8 group, and you'll find that the combination of support, love, and altruism is a healer of just about every program. I have people who have had scarcity mentalities, were brought up with that, and have had windfalls, got new jobs, created completely new lives for themselves, or if they were having trouble with relationships, found the love of their lives, or reconnected with their children, or something like that. So something miraculous about the power of a small group can heal people. Now, we have to go. I think we could talk forever, right, Bruce?
Many hours left.
But we'll be back again. But I just want to tell you about what we're up to right now. So Bruce has a great new community site on his website, brucelipton.com.
It's going to be first week or so of January, brand new website to create community among all those people who are working on biology of belief, so they can interact with each other. So that to me is important, because community, as we just talked about, is the whole foundation of, hey, start with a small community. A group of 8 is a good start right there. And your
website is again?
brucelipton.com.
brucelipton.com. So check out his great new community site. And fantastic, Bruce. And the doors to my Power of 8 Intention Masterclass 2021 have just opened. I'm running that February 6th. It kicks off and it goes for a whole year. I teach you through 10 sessions throughout the year and send you weekly advice and guidance, and put you into small groups. And we monitor what's going on with you all year long. So check that out on my website, lynnmctaggart.com. And just go to courses under Power of 8 Intention Masterclass. And also this Sunday, I'm running an intention experiment to heal polarization in America. And we're going to have Republicans and Democrats on this and see what happens. When we've done this before, something about coming together and intending in a group helps the heart leap across the fence. So let's see, you can find out. We're going to be posting something about it on my website, lynnmctaggart.com. Go to Intention Experiments under Upcoming, and you'll find it. We'll be posting it tomorrow. Bruce, thank you so much. It's so fabulous to chat with you. I've really loved it.
Lynn, I love being with you, because together we amplify the same story from a different point of view, each one, but it's the same story for self-empowerment. We are creators. And if you don't like the creation, you don't change the world, change the consciousness.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening from Facebook and on our webcast. We love being with you. Take care. Talk soon. Bye.